Okay, I just thought of something. This is episode 2, the first in a series called What If It Really Is True? Okay, episode 1, we retired that in honor of the What If astrology what if astrology is true in the sense that what if it really matters where the sun is in the sky in terms of the constellations? And, I conclude that then we should actually say which one it is and not say it's that in that place when it's somewhere else. Um, this one is a different. This one is what if reincarnation's true? Reincarnation. Okay, there we go. What if reincarnation's true? Oh my God, could reincarnation be true? See, I'm a materialist. I believe reincarnation is like, well, it's sort of the birth project, you know, birth process. We say that life starts at conception. Well, really, it's sort of a re-lifing, because everything's alive up to that point, and the egg and the cell are alive. It's just that they're so, I was going to say autonomous, but that's not really what I meant. They're automatic to a degree. They're very simple. They're not like human life forms, so they're sort of like little packages for humans. So in a way, you've lost your life down to the last little trace, and you're just a little bit of life. You could call that a reincarnation, just as we would say, well, you're incarnated then when they meet, but really it's reincarnated because both of the egg and the sperm were part of a incarnation before. So I would say, well, that's probably what that word really means. It's just another word for the progeny process. But no, what if you had some sort of a spirit and it gets reincarnated? Well, first of all, I would believe entirely you have to have transmigration. Now, some people say that it's not reincarnation, it's transmigration when you can reincarnate as another animal. Because, I mean, come on, there's not enough hard distinctions between us and the apes, and then the apes and the monkeys, and all of us, ultimately, us and bananas, to say that that there'd be a hard and fast line. Now, it might be that, you have a human-shaped soul, and so it tends to go in humans, but you're evolving, so it has to, like, living things be adaptable somehow to other shells, to some range. And really, I always like the one, well, what if when you reincarnate, you can go anywhere else in your direct lineage, up or down? With the idea that, yeah, there's some sort of branching determinism. You can reincarnate maybe even into the future or into the past. And really, I think in that case, yeah, lives could be lived over and over. If you reincarnated into the past, you would make the decisions in that life different, and you would take a different branch in that life. So some other soul that reincarnated in the past would live that life of that person in that body, but just through slightly different inclinations. And a lot of all the parts of that person that were part of their conditioning and their metabolism, both mental and physical, those would be the same for all the souls that incarnated into it. But if you um, But if you have some sort of difference in the soul, some decisions that would be made that were just on the edge, and being one incarnate versus another would change that. You'd have a distinct life even as a result. And it sort of goes with the parallel universe idea because these are all different parallel universes and they're sort of etched out. And it means you aren't actually those other people, those are just other souls in parallel universes. So you really could meet the evil Kirk because the evil soul might have incarnated that body in another particular universe. See, to me, this is speculative philosophy. It's like, I like science fiction, I always have, but, it's the more general term speculative fiction because it doesn't have to have science in it. But, and you can have speculative fiction really in most other genres, mixed with other genres, but it's distinct from fiction. Excuse me, it's distinct from fantasy. Because fantasy is where it doesn't have to hook together. We want the people to fly and we want the wings to be this big, so it works. Where speculative fiction says, let's take some premise, generally, hopefully, more sophisticated than, what if Hitler had won the war, but that kind of counts. So, but some people consider that the annoying version because it's kind of cliche comic booky version. I like those kinds of stories, though. but a good one would be, more sophisticated. Just that there's some kind of culture in the future, like a time machine or something. You set up this situation so that it's somewhat plausible. You ask the famous suspension of disbelief so that the audience accepts those premises. But after that point, you combine the premises in a very rationalistic way. The premises they're canon. They're as inviolable as the laws of physics. They're never violated in there if you've done your job in good, uh, hard speculative fiction. Of course, there's softer speculative fiction, like soft science fiction, where there's a science motif and actually not all the loose ends are tied up. I like hard science fiction and mixing with still making it weird, as opposed to hard science fiction where our technology is just great. No, but the society is just like now. No, I like hard science fiction where, like Greg Egan has stories where brains can load up into computers and then into bodies, and if that body dies, it goes from a backup, and they're more or less immortal. It's actually a very interesting story. I forget what the name of that one was, but there's an accident in one part of the galaxy, and a bubble of destruction basically is coming out at light speed. It's just eating up the space itself, and there's nothing they can do, but it's still going to take thousands of years to devour the galaxy, or hundreds of thousands of years, I forget, however long the galaxy is across from this thing. And people can only travel at light speed away from it, so depending on how far it is, you know how much time you have. You can start going. Some people were trying to expand their time by traveling at near light speed. Wait for that wouldn't work. He probably explains it. It's hard science fiction, so he probably explains the relativity. But anyway, whatever. But yeah, so that's my reincarnation one so far. So yeah, you'd be able to transmigrate. Now, a lot of people think that if you're reincarnating, you're getting better and better evolved, and that's what I believe too. If I don't believe in reincarnation, I mean, speculate the reincarnation. Now, I believe it would have to be that, yeah, you're turning over this machine, and there's progress in your soul, becoming enlightened, an enlightened soul. Okay, so now with the transmigration, a lot of people think that you start out as a lowly bug, you start out as a mosquito, or a tick, and you just evolve your way up. If you're a better and better tick, I guess, and make better ethical decisions as a tick, you get a chance to be, a worm, and then I just don't believe that. What I think is, if there was reincarnation, it'd have to work this way. Your raw soul, your blank soul, starts off in a human. Why? Because humans can do anything. They can be like any other animal in the sense of lifestyle, philosophical lifestyle, right? Like, they can be in the water all the time, or they can be in the desert, or any of the habitats, pretty much. Even snowy, icy, crazy ones. They can live like parasites, or they can, live like predators. They can live like foragers. They can be, nesting in groups or in individual form. Most animals have one style of that. You don't see a lot of variation. Well, if the soul was to get its first chance, it would have a chance to do the variation. And then as the soul chose things, then it'd be more like the Pinocchio version, whereas the boy acted like the ass, he turned into the ass. I'm not saying that's where I got this idea, but okay. I don't want Disney to sue me. Okay. But so you become, the parasitic person evolves more and more into parasitic animals. And if they're more parasitic, like a tick, a bloodsucker, then they would go in that direction. And compared to if they're more parasitic, like a mosquito, also a bloodsucker, but of a different lifestyle. I'd rather be a mosquito than a tick. But I wouldn't really want to be either one. I'd want to be one of these animal lizards. I mean, they just hang around in the light on these leaves. The green, leafy light beams shooting down. They're really slow lizards, but that's because they're just all over. There's plenty of them, even though they're slow. Birds, there's plenty of birds around, but they're kind of a chameleon, and they look more like a regular lizard than the standard African chameleon. It looks like an alligator lizard or something.